All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Picture this, because I know it's a super familiar scene for pretty much all of us. You're sitting on your couch, it's late, and your phone lights up. A friend sent you a message, say, 4 hours ago. You saw it immediately. You read it. You probably even thought about exactly what you wanted to say back. And then, nothing. You just put the phone face down.
Then a day goes by. 2 days. Suddenly it's been almost a week. You've opened the message dozens of times. You've drafted perfect little responses in your head. But the guilt just builds and builds with every single notification you get from that person. And there's this agonizing question just playing on a loop in your brain. Why can't I just type back? I mean, it literally takes 15 seconds. What is actually wrong with me? We've all felt that painful internal guilt trip when we physically cannot reply to a simple text from someone we genuinely care about. But here is a massive paradigm shift for us. Leaving a message on read, it is not a moral failing, it's not some deep character flaw, and you aren't just being rude. According to neuroscience, this is actually an involuntary biological survival mechanism. Your nervous system is quite literally hitting the emergency brake. And hey, if you think you're somehow uniquely broken for doing this, you are absolutely not. Let's look at the numbers. A recent study showed that a massive 66% of Brits actively delay opening text messages. And notice I said opening them, not just replying. People are avoiding even looking at the message out of the sheer dread of having to craft the perfect reply. This digital dread is everywhere. To make things even wilder, check out the mismatch driving that dread. While 2/3 of people are completely overwhelmed by texting, 55% of Gen Z and millennials expect a response within a 10-minute window. 10 minutes! That is faster than most of us can even finish pouring a cup of coffee. The gap between what's expected of us and our actual emotional capacity is huge. So what's actually happening here? Let's get into section 1, the polyvagal override. Basically, your nervous system operates in a few different states. First, you've got your ventral vagal state. This is your safe and social zone. When you're in this state, you're calm, you're grounded, and you can fire off a text to a friend without even thinking twice. But on the flip side, we have the dorsal vagal state. This is total shutdown. It's the freeze. And this is the exact biological override taking place in your body when that one text message suddenly feels impossibly heavy. So, when we talk about this dorsal vagal freeze, we're talking about something incredibly ancient. It's the oldest part of your parasympathetic nervous system, and it evolved for situations of extreme, inescapable threat. Think of an animal playing dead to avoid a predator. The wild thing is, your nervous system doesn't easily distinguish between an actual physical predator and a text message demanding social reciprocity. It just registers a threat and completely shuts you down.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth does a simple text feel like a literal predator? Well, it comes down to something called neuroception. That's your brain's unconscious 24/7 scan of the environment looking for safety or danger. When we talk face-to-face, we have tone of voice, we have touch, we have facial expressions to signal that we're safe. Texting strips away every single one of those survival safety cues, leaving your sensitive brain flying completely blind. And to your nervous system, ambiguity equals extreme danger. Which brings us to section 2, the hidden drivers of digital freeze. Let's unpack what's actually triggering this behind the scenes. First up, we've got a major evolutionary mismatch. You might have heard of Dunbar's number. It suggests our brains evolved to manage a face-to-face social network of around 150 people. Being globally accessible 24/7 on a smartphone totally overloads our evolutionary limits. Second, there's a phenomenon called interoception blunting. When you're in a freeze, you actually stop feeling your body's early warning signs of stress. You go numb. And finally, the cognitive load is just too high. Formulating the perfect reply drains our finite emotional battery so much faster than we realize. And we can't talk about this without mentioning attachment styles, because they play a huge role here. If you lean toward an avoidant attachment style, closeness often feels demanding. So you might subconsciously view messages as a threat to your personal autonomy, and your instinct is to seek distance. On the other hand, if you're anxiously attached, an intense fear of rejection paralyzes you with perfectionism. You'll draft and delete, until the sheer weight of getting the text exactly right triggers a total shutdown. Throw ADHD into the mix, and it gets even more intense. Researchers actually call this the 2-second or 2-week response pattern. ADHD time blindness creates this weird vortex where a casual thought like, oh, I'll just reply later when I have a minute, somehow turns into 3 weeks of accumulated silence and massive, crushing guilt. All right, moving on to section 3, the shame delay loop. This is where things really spiral, and it usually happens in 4 pretty predictable steps. First, you delay replying just to avoid the immediate discomfort. Then, step 2, the guilt and shame start to build up. Step 3 is the kicker. Because of the delay, the perceived stakes of replying skyrocket. Now you feel like you have to write a huge apology or explain yourself. And finally, step 4, all that shame triggers a sympathetic activation in your body, basically throwing gasoline onto the fire of your nervous system shutdown, causing an even deeper freeze.
By the time you're deep in this loop, that little text bubble isn't even communication anymore. It literally transforms into a massive symbol of social debt. You aren't really avoiding your friend anymore, you are actively avoiding the compounding, unbearable weight of the delay itself. But we definitely need to talk about the sender side of things too. Our human brains are hardwired to equate social connection with actual survival. Faster responses signal connection and safety, while slower responses signal rejection. To the person waiting on the other end, your silence can actually activate regions of their brain associated with physical pain. The hurt they are feeling, it's completely real and valid.
Okay, so how do we fix it? Section 4, breaking the freeze. If your emotional battery is completely tapped out, you need what's called a low-spoon communication protocol. Start by literally naming the freeze out loud in real time. Just say, I am frozen right now. It sounds silly, but it instantly interrupts the shame spiral. Next, orient yourself to safety. Take a deep breath, physically feel the ground beneath your feet, go into your settings and disable your read receipts to take away that horrible pressure of being watched. And finally, officially give yourself permission to abandon perfectionism.
From there, we use a somatic technique called pendulation. It's all about breaking this massive mountain of a task into ridiculously small, non-threatening microsteps. First, literally just open the message. That's it. Next, take a breath. Then type just one single word. And finally, hit send. By moving in these tiny, safe increments, you are actively thawing the freeze. And my absolute favorite tool for this is the bridge reply. When you send a simple, low-effort text like, hey, saw this, I'm a bit overloaded right now, but I'll reply properly later tonight, you instantly lower the cost of that scary first response. It relieves your anxiety, and it completely relieves the sender's anxiety, because you finally remove the ambiguity of your silence. Another game changer? Just proactively communicating your nervous system pattern to the people you care about. Tell your friends about your low battery moments ahead of time. Explain that when you delay a text, it's absolutely not about them. It's just your system freezing up. When you remove that mystery, you stop fueling relationship anxiety on both sides. Look, if you only take one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. A delayed reply is an indicator of your emotional bandwidth, not your character. Separating this involuntary, biological survival behavior from your core personal identity is the master key to finally breaking out of this cycle of shame and delay. As we wrap things up, I really want to offer you an empowering reframe. Read this and let it sink in. You are allowed to stop apologizing for a survival response. Your nervous system is just doing what it's built to do. It's trying to protect you. It is well past time to absolve yourself of that long-held digital guilt. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. The very next time you see that little blue tick or that red unread badge glaring at you from your home screen, will you let it be a much-needed signal for rest instead of a harsh verdict on your character? Thanks so much for exploring this with me today. I really hope you step away feeling vindicated, empowered, and ready to understand your own incredible mind just a little bit deeper. Catch you next time.